They've been doing this for years. Oh. Is it?
That's on.
You got it? So amend it. Yeah, that's better. Great, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is Planning Committee meeting from Town Council. I'm Steve Tanner. I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. As ever, we want to make our meetings available to as many people as possible, regardless of where they are. So we use a hybrid setup here in person in the Town Hall and online via Zoom. Little housekeeping for those here in the room. Emergency exit is to the rear corner of the room, assembly points in the car park. Toilets can be accessed from the end of the corridor on the right-hand side, or there is an accessible toilet to the right of the lift through that door. For panelists on Zoom, please use the electronic raise hand by clicking on the participants button at the bottom of your screen. For those in the room, if you want to make questions, please raise your hand. For attendees on Zoom, please pose questions through the Q&A board. Attendees' names will become visible on the questions board for the record as your question is answered. For those attendees in the room, again, we'll raise hand and we'll call you in. Tonight, Jane and Catherine will clerk and Hannah will manage the questions board and the participant settings. The meeting will be recorded for minuting purposes and will be also live streamed to our YouTube channel. Very much. Item number 2 on the agenda, any questions, comments or information from the public not relating to things we're discussing? No, great, thank you. And councillors? Excellent, thank you very much. Agenda item number 3, to agree the apologies for absence. I've got Polly and Fiona. Yep, thank you very much. So it's Polly, Lara and Fiona.
Propose those.
Thank you. Oh, we have to vote, of course, for a second. Mark, thank you. Right. Item agenda number 4, agree the minutes of the meeting of the 15th of December 2022. Anyone's got any comments? If not, could someone propose that for me? Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Mark. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Item number 6, to consider major plan applications received, and I'll pass over to Catherine at this point.
Steve, at which point do we need to declare interest?
We could do that now, actually, I think. I've missed a point, haven't I? Missed that item number agenda 5. Sorry, my mistake. It's been a long day. Agenda item number 5, declarations of members' interest. I think everyone on the committee needs to declare an interest. Item number 143.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Also, item 133, the applicant is on the board of Froome Festival with me, so I will abstain from that discussion.
Right, okay.
Okay, Andy, that one wasn't unless anyone wants to talk about it.
Lisa, hi.
In addition to being a councillor, I also lease office space at Station Approach.
Right, okay, thank you. Probably best to note that. Right, back to item number 6 on the agenda. My apologies. Consider major plan applications received. Over to Catherine.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
Mike.
Oh, hi. This is a good start, isn't it? Great. Can everyone hear? Perfect. Let me just share the screen. What we'll be discussing this evening is the land at 77, if I can make this full screen, you can actually see it. Land at 3776721466, which is the hedgerow removal along the main road, along the mount. As you can see from the plan, it's regarding the development within the red boundary, and these are the images that the applicant submitted alongside. This is the original application, which, as Helen Kay pointed out earlier, the shows some hedgerow remaining. And then this is the image from the updated hedgerow removal application, which shows that as being removed. I believe Chris Marsh is joining us this evening. Hello, Chris, to explain further and to answer any questions. And he's shared some slides with me, so I will just bring those up for you now.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, I thought firstly, I'm sure you kind of hope you've seen the back of this site for a little while. I probably would empathise with that. As you're probably aware, this relates to a site, an allocated site at Keyford Lane, which was subject of a couple of planning applications, and finally achieved a resolution to grant full planning permission by Mendip Council back in July of last year. As Catherine's just explained, within the scope of those works, with the relocation of the access to the Mount, the proposals included the removal of a substantial section of hedgerow, approximately 108 metres of hedgerow, to accommodate the required visibility splays. As time has gone on, that resolution is still in place, but we have not seen much progress out of Mendip, it's fair to say, in respect to the section 106. So the reason for the current application is principally one of timing. Essentially, the developer wants to undertake those hedgerow removal works ahead of bird nesting season in March, and due to the time constraints, is therefore seeking it as a standalone proposal. I can provide a quick qualification as well on that additional section of hedgerow shown as to be removed to the north of the kind of northeast site boundary there. Thank you. Yeah, as you'll see, the bright green shown there at the very northeast corner was hedgerow to be retained under the planning application. That's what the permission will enshrine. But that does very helpfully show the extent of removal, essentially wherever there isn't the bright green, where there is currently hedgerow along there. The current proposal, just to clarify on that point about the works to the north, under the terms of the section 278 offsite highway works agreement, which include the provision of this right turn lane going southward towards the site, the curb line, which you can see, well, just about to see potentially just to the north of the northeast corner of the site, essentially crosses where we have retained hedgerow for the time being. I'm advised by our engineers that this is a kind of worst case. They hope to avoid needing to remove it, but because we've got the application in at the moment, they want to show every bit of hedgerow that could possibly need to be removed in the course of those works. So there is actually a slight correction to the application. We've submitted a new form. It should be 118 metres rather than 108, just to cover that section. It's worth highlighting, again, that there's only a question of timing to get in ahead of bird nesting season, but what these works will also enable is site access for due diligence, including the archaeological investigation on the site, which again, the developer wants to get on and do sooner rather than later. It doesn't amount to a start to development, but obviously it's a very important step before getting on site for construction works. So that's essentially the scope of the current application. It's not, as I say, not any attempt to divert materially from what there will be permission for, but we do need that authorization sooner rather than later if we're going to get onto site and undertake those removal works. I'm happy to answer any further questions.
Sorry. Gosh, now I've broken it. Sir, is it James? Did you want to make some comments on this one? No? Right, sorry. Sorry, James. Yeah, could you use, yeah, it's just for people online, if you don't mind. Thank you.
If I can just introduce myself, first of all, my name's James Wilson and I reside with my family at number 8, The Robins, which, are you able to bring the plans up at all, just to make it a bit clearer? We live in the house which is immediately adjacent to the field upon which the development is going to be built. That's correct, yeah. The earlier slides didn't really illustrate the hedgerow as it is. In actual fact, to the bottom of our small garden is trees. It's not hedgerow. I appreciate it's a point to be made, but nonetheless, it is actually trees that surround the bottom of our garden. So we strongly object to the application for the following reasons. Clearly, this is a change, as Chris has mentioned, to the plan dated February 2022, where it states that existing trees and vegetation to be retained and protected during construction. The need for the hedgerow to be retained is further recognised in the plans submitted in July 2022 on Little Keyford Lane, where the hedgerow has been retained in order to, and the wording used is providing robust screen to dwellings. We would lose the protection that is now being afforded to those properties on Little Keyford Lane. As I said, at the rear of our house, it's not hedgerows, it's actually trees. So the pictures supplied show hedgerow in the normal sense, but what we have are quite well-established trees, which afford our families some privacy and provide a barrier and obviously a degree of physical protection from what is currently a busy road. That road is going to become increasingly busy, not only when the development is built, but also, as Chris mentioned, during the construction phase. Those trees provide an effective barrier from the road from noise, pollution and litter, but also protect our home from burglary, as the trees act as an effective deterrent, which we will lose. If removed, our home will be left exposed to the road. We will already lose the view of the field, the hills and the woodland, which we've enjoyed, but at least we had those few trees at the bottom of our garden. If this application is agreed, our kitchen, living room and dining area will now face onto a busy road instead. May I therefore ask that the Freedom Town Council consider the significant impact that this, there's the way it's been portrayed, minor amendment will have on our family and also our neighbours who are unable to attend this evening but have raised similar concerns. May I also ask that if this application is successful, that the raised embankment that currently exists remains in place so that at least a minimal protection from the road remains in place, and that Wayne Homes take responsibility for the replacement of robust metal barriers as to address the concerns that I've previously described. That's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Helen, did you want to say something? You need a microphone, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Is that on? Yeah.
Welcome, by the way.
Yeah. Only that when there was a lot of negotiation between myself and Wayne Homes just before it was accepted at planning board last summer, and I did study the landscape plans in some detail, and I did talk to this chappie here. Sorry, I didn't recognise you at the time, and you know, I got an assurance, I think, from somebody, Chris or the planning officer, that this hedgerow at the bottom of their garden was not going to be removed. So I'm just concerned now that that the planning board made a decision based on the landscape plans that were in front of them, and now it appears the landscape plans are a little different. And I think I have a question for Chris, which is, I'm really sorry I was late, and you've probably explained this already, but it's presumably to do with visibility splays because of the right turn. But are you actually planning to put a pavement in there? Because there is no pavement currently, and that pavement won't go anywhere. So I understand why the hedgerow's got to come out. I've always understood that the hedgerow had to come out, but it was not that far north. And so I'm really sorry that I was late, but I'm going to ask you to explain that again. And what the sections, whether I as a Somerset County councillor could also go to them and ask if it could be changed in any way or looked at again. I mean, I may have the power to do that, not sure. I give this back to Chris.
And yeah, grab another microphone.
Thank you, Councillor Kate. Yeah, I think I can answer that question. The visibility displays are as they are. However, we do need, on the basis of the current details, an additional length of hedgerow because of the curb line on the curb edging. because they'll be realigning that section of the road to accommodate the hatchings for the new right turn lane southbound, and that means building out the carriageway, resetting the curbstones. Now, the indication we've had is that that's something that's been led by negotiations with Somerset over the Section 278 agreement. Naturally, developers are not desperate to do anything that they don't absolutely have to do in terms of that design, but they are ultimately led by the Highway Authority in terms of that specification. If that's something that the County Council could exercise some flexibility on, then it may well reduce the need to remove hedgerow, and certainly the intention is not to remove any more than is necessary to undertake those works.
Thanks, Chris. Go on, Helen.
Shall I respond? It's a
Please
bit
do.
strange having this conversation then. But well, I will undertake to try and action that in the next few days to see if I can see if there is some flexibility in that with the highways. I've got a feeling that I might get just a straight no answer and that this is a standard kind of procedure. But I will point out to them, I even looked up Section 278, and it does say that sometimes this is agreed after planning approval is given. So that this is something that must happen in other cases where, the landscape plan changes slightly. So my sincere apologies to the neighbours concerned, because I thought I had reassured them that this hedgerow was going to remain. So
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. Andy, and then Philip.
Just picking up on an observation from the Civic Society comments about the fact that this hedgerow was apparently included as a back corridor in the ecological study, and yet now seems to be being removed. And I wondered what the upshot of that is, if there's an intention to replace it, or what the ecology impact becomes.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. In terms of ecology, it was the southern hedgerow dividing it from the neighbouring David Wilson parcel, which was the significant ecological back corridor resource on site. The hedgerows to both Little Keeford Lane and the Mount, while independently recognised as of some value, is less critical to the overall strategy for the site. At present, there isn't any detailed proposal for replacement in that section to the north, though the permission would obviously be bound by the remaining approved details in terms of replanting along the site frontage once those visibility displays have been put in place along the Mount. But there isn't any detail, I'm afraid, because we're still somewhat beholden to the Highways Agreement as to what goes on in that area to the north that's, as Councillor Kay has indicated, kind of come into play after the resolution to grant permission.
Okay, thank you. Philip.
My name is Philip Campagna. I'm one of the ward councillors for Keefhead. I've got a number of points. I was up there this morning. I couldn't actually physically get out of my car because of the rain, but I did manage to take some pictures, and I'm fairly familiar with that area. One point, if I may, first of all, before I go on to the others, is I'm not exactly sure where this proposed entrance will be in relationship to the entrance to Dragonfly Close, which is the other side of the road.
I think it is shown on that approved layout. I think you do get the context to Dragonfly Close on the other side.
I see. Yeah.
We are.
I mean, am I correct in saying that the entrance is somewhere between the entrance to Dragonfly Close and James's property?
Yes, so it's kind of to the north of the access to Dragonfly Close, and we had to be quite careful about the placement of that access to avoid junction conflict between other accesses.
What surprised me is that, introducing another junction, as it were, another entrance. And when I was sat there in my car this morning, I thought, do you know what? The most logical would be you have your entrance opposite Dragonfly Close and you put a mini roundabout in, because that would actually alleviate James's issue, but also it would act as traffic calming, because sitting there, the traffic does actually go at quite a speed, it would still require a significant amount of the hedgerow to be removed, because at that point, I've noticed, as you come from town with the you know your site on the right, there is a slight curve in the road. Therefore, your visibility from that point may have to go extend a bit further. But I'm not sure. You know, I did question that. Maybe too late, I know, but I did question the fact that, you know, putting an extra junction in. I mean, I've got a picture here that I took this morning. From what I could see, and I wasn't exactly sure while I was there exactly where your entrance was. I had a feeling it was somewhere there. It didn't seem as if it would be necessary to remove the trees, and certainly not all of them. You've explained about the curb and so on that needs to go in because of the hatching of turning. So are you, or is Highways proposing to take the space they need from the right from your site, but none from the visibility patch, as I call it, the grass area, that when you turn left into Dragonfly Close?
In short, yes, that's correct. So all of that extra carriageway width gets provided on the application site side. Principally, as I understand it, I'm caveat this, I'm not a highways engineer, because of the provision of a crossing point that then links to a footway provision on the opposite side of the road. In respect to the selection of a right turn lane arrangement, that is simply what the developers engineers put to the local highway authority and the local planning authority. I'd speculate that a mini roundabout would still probably likely require the same degree of removal, as well as taking obviously a greater width within the carriageway to provide. I don't know whether that option was considered, and if so, why it was rejected, but I can only summarize that obviously the right turn lane was what was presented and what was accepted.
As I don't know the reasons why that particular position was selected as an entrance, but from the little I know, if a say a mini roundabout were to be put in, it doesn't actually necessitate widening carriages, because traffic still proceed along their individual lane, and then turning left or right, it doesn't actually increase the lane width. But that was just the other point I had to make. Thank you for that. The other point I had to make was I note that there are either telecommunications or power lines or something there as well. Presumably they're going to be removed. I mean, I've got a picture here. This is one I took this morning. Whoops, where are we? I took this morning. This one here. That those power lines there. Yeah, you can see them there in the picture.
Yes, my understanding is that those will be repositioned to accommodate the visibility displays. Obviously, you can't go sticking poles in the middle of new visibility displays. So I understand that those would be relocated as part of the works. I'm not sure offhand, I'm afraid, whether that's shown on this engineering drawing. It may be, or it may be limited to clearance works, I'm afraid. I can seek some further clarification on that if it would help, but I can't do it on the spot, I'm afraid.
Well, no, it was simply that I couldn't see reference to that, you know, to those lines, whatever they might be. Thank you.
Thanks, Philip. Anyone? Oh, Jane.
Thank you. Hi, Chris. Given that the hedge and the trees runs literally in front of other people's properties, who does it actually belong to?
My understanding is that is within Highways control, and that the site control for Wayne Homes is essentially bound by the kind of application site boundary. But my understanding is that all of those Highways works and associated clearance either takes place within Highways land or land within Wayne Homes control.
Okay, thank you.
James, I was busy looking over there.
There was a question raised about the power lines. it may be worth noting as well that in the revised plans, there will also be a street lamp which will be placed immediately opposite our house. So currently, the additional lighting that I think was provided for Dragonfly Close doesn't mean that street light then immediately comes into our living area and into our children's bedrooms. However, if you look, the blue symbol there is where the lamp will now be placed in order to provide sufficient light, I'd imagine, for the junction. In doing so, with the removal of the trees as well, there is likely to then be street light coming into our living area and into our children's bedrooms. Of course, we can negate that with curtains and what have you, but that is an additional change to our current living circumstances and further aggravated by the removal of the trees. And if I can make one final point just in relation to the reference made to what is a small change, although it may only be 10 metres of hedgerow, that 10 metres incorporates, I believe, our garden, our neighbour's garden, and just into our third neighbour's garden. So although it's only 10 metres, if I can just emphasise, the impact for us is significant. Thanks very much.
Thanks, James. Actually, Helen, can I just ask a few questions first? Chris, have highways been consulted on this? Do you know?
Offhand, I don't know, but given that they're a statutory consultee, I would expect them to have been on that list. Again, I can touch base with the officer concerned and double check that for you.
I sort of like to hear. Oh, James can check. Yeah, I mean, I sort of get why you want to remove the hedge. It's that extra bit that I'm sort of struggling with. I'll let Helen ask her questions first.
If I might just further add in respect of consulting highways, just the kind of obligatory health warning that those that get consulted on planning applications are not normally those who are dealing with detailed design at post application stage, which is where there can be a bit of a disconnect. But I'd certainly
that was. I'll lead on to that. I'll let Helen go first because.
I think that some of the points that Philip raised were actually discussed at the planning board meeting about whether or not we should have a roundabout instead. And unfortunately, this extra right turn was agreed, and I don't think we can go back on that. I also questioned it. Dragonfly Close, there's 62 houses, they don't need a right turn, whereas here we've got 70 odd and they do need a right turn. But, you know, I think unfortunately that battle was sort of fought and lost, and so we are left with this right turn. We have to have it. On the question of land ownership, I did wonder about that. I did wonder when the Robins was built if that hedgerow was planted on purpose or whether it was already there, whether it actually belonged to the management company of the Robins or whether it is Somerset County Council. And the reason I question that is because Anne Hills, who is also a town councillor, she told me that she owned the hedgerow a bit further up, that it actually belongs to her. So if she owns it a bit further up, I don't understand how the ownership changes as you go down the hedgerow. So I'll also make an inquiry about that and look at my maps on Mendip and make an inquiry about that as well, just to find out who owns that hedgerow.
Thanks, Helen. Philip, back to Philip. Thanks, Steve.
Just checking with Catherine that some of the documents provided and one of the drawings provided, there is an outline drawing with a red line. It's the usual one we get when we're discussing a plot. I note here that the red line does not go up and behind James's and the other three properties. So in terms of what you seem to be saying, or someone seems to be saying, is that's the plot, not the hedgerow beyond that. So is that you, or is that Highways who are now stating that something that needs to be done, you know, regarding the removal of that hedge?
Thank you. It is led by Highways negotiations. The site location plan is for the purposes of orientation, but the hedgerow notification regime is a slightly unusual one, let's say, as distinct from normal kind of planning application requirements. But as I say, obviously that red line derives from the full planning applications, and the current application is from effectively post-resolution negotiations over the technical highway detail with Somerset.
Any, Chris, I'm going to go back to this highways. I get why you want to move the existing part of the hedge that was in the plan. It's the additional bit, you know, sort of behind the three houses, behind the James houses, that I have a problem with. I think you said it may be removed, and it's the visibility displays and things like that that potentially could cause a problem. Having only been doing this for about 4 or 5 years, you know, Somerset highways are an unwritten rule when it comes to visibility displays, as far as I'm concerned. You've no idea which way they're going to turn. And looking at this, and I'm getting that you need to remove the lower part of the hedge for access, but I'm not sure that the upper part of the extra 10 or 15 meters is actually going to make a great deal of difference as far as I can see. And in terms of visibility space, I'm just not really sure I get where, you know, that's going to make a massive difference. And it seems that we're taking out a big chunk of hedge, which we may not have to take out. And I really would like to hear from highways and get them on site. I know that's sort of asking for the moon sometimes, but and Jane sort of whispered in my ear that they haven't been consulted. I actually think they should be consulted, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't know what you think about that. Over to you.
I mean, in respect of whether they should be consulted, I think they could probably bring some useful context to the discussion, being the authority responsible for ultimately approving the highways details. As I say, the application's prepared on a precautionary basis, setting out the absolute maximum that could need to come out. The question is timing. If it were as minimal as, yes, simply punching an access to create access to the site, to get, you know, plans on for archaeology and so on, frankly, we could do that at any time without permission. However, we are not confident that we will extract a planning permission in time for the start of bird nesting season, which is obviously extremely problematic then, in terms of timing. Which is why it's provided on this kind of wholesale basis.
Steve.
Sorry, Andy. Yeah,
if I can just come back. I mean, to me, it seems a bit strange that it's been lodged on the Mendip planning portal as an HDG, so it's treated as a hedgerow application, and therefore has just been assigned to the tree officer, Bo Walsh, which is why nobody else has been consulted. I think it's been mishandled, and I think it should go for wider consultation.
That's a good point. Thanks.
Can I just clarify? So on the original application, it said 8 meters. It now says 108 meters. So I assume that was a typo with a full stop. Earlier you said 118 meters. How much hedgerow is actually coming out?
Yeah, I must apologise for confusion. It's a very odd regime, and it's a very odd requirement of the planning portal that even though you don't have to apply for anything, if it's under 25 meters, 30 meters, I believe, it won't let you enter a figure that is over 25 meters, which is utterly bizarre. I think a glitch in their system. So we scrubbed out the dot, but then I was informed when I raised the issue with the engineers as to which figure was correct. They corrected it and said it was actually 118. So that is the correct figure that takes into account that additional stretch to the north. And again, please do accept my apologies for the confusion, because there have been a couple of changes on that front.
Can we vote on it if it's different? Can we vote on it if it's different?
I don't know. I believe so. My thoughts, I'm just going to sort of say them out because I've written them down. I've got no real issue with the original chunk of hedge, and you know, I get why you need to get access and you need to get going. Personally, I would, in terms of the extra 10 metres, I really would love to hear from Highways and Bow as to whether they feel that that is really necessary. And as I say, if they don't, then that's fine. You guys can crack on and get your access and get your plant on. So I'm sort of trying to come up with a pragmatic solution where the original, yes, crack on sort of thing, but let's defer that bit of hedge, that extra bit of hedge, until we can hear from Highways and a few others as to if they actually think that's really necessary. I don't know if we can do that, Jane. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think to answer Catherine's question, yes, you can still vote on it, but I do think just for the sake of correctness, it would be worth asking Mendip to amend the description on the website so that it does read 118 metres.
I have asked them to do so, and they have just to clarify, they have been given an updated application form that is entirely correct. But yeah, regrettably, it doesn't seem like that's quite made it through to the public realm yet. Councillor Tanner, just in respect of your comments there, I do understand, and as I say, our engineers are ultimately just looking to reach an agreement with Somerset and are being led by their requirements. But I understand entirely if you wanted to couch or rather the town council's comments in those terms, I would understand that.
So I'd like to propose that we do object to this on that basis, that it's not been properly consulted or researched the impact of removing that last 10.8 metres or whatever the number is.
Right, let's hold that. Anyone else got any thoughts, comments? Helen?
Just in order to smooth the way, should you decide to object, I will liaise with Chris, and maybe I can get the contacts that you've got from Somerset County Council to resolve it as quickly as possible, and speak to Bo Walsh tomorrow if I can.
Great, thanks, Helen. Yeah. Jane.
Sorry, I was just going to add that should you choose to object to it, you might, I'm presuming that had this formed part of the original application, that we would have raised an objection to the fact that it would have a detrimental impact on the amenity of those three properties. So you might want to add that into any response as well.
Sure. Yeah. I'm just trying to come up with a wording which, as we said, that we get and we understand why the developer needs to get access to the site prior to the nesting season. So can we sort of come up with a wording? Yes, we object, but we're actually just objecting on the extra bit of hedgerow, and we're seeking clarification really from Bow and from Highways. So it's sort of an objection, almost a deferral or an objection, but I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's confusing this is because it is a hedgerow application and not a full application. And I understand that when Bo, the tree officer, looks at it, he will look at it as he would a tree application, and whether or not it's worthy of protection. So I think possibly the stronger route would be, as Helen says, to try and negotiate with Somerset Highways, albeit a different section of Somerset Highways, because they'll be the ones that are looking at the 278. Yeah. As to whether or not it's absolutely necessary for that additional amount of hedgerow to come out, and whether they are just being overcautious, but clearly it is going to have a significant impact on those properties, and a long-lasting one as well, because presumably once the work has been done, there'll be no screening that goes back in afterwards.
That could potentially be subject of further negotiation between Wayne Homes engineers and Somerset, but at the moment, I'm not aware that anything's progressed to that stage that we know one way or the other, in truth.
Okay, thanks. So I think we're objecting, subject to further clarification from Highways, from Beau Walsh, mainly because of the loss of amenity to those 3 houses. That's what I'm hearing. Is that okay? So someone proposed that. Thank you, Mark. Someone second that. Right. Thank you. Yeah, as just as an aside, are you? Sorry, are you going to contact Highways and
Yeah, I've
Owen?
just managed to get out of doing planning board next week, and that means I've now got tomorrow free.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Well, now you have.
I will do it. Promise.
Thanks, thanks, Councillor Kay. Thanks, Chris. Thank you, James. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, the next application that we are going to talk about is Station Approach, the installation of 2 shipping containers and 1 log cabin for Class E and a workshop, which is part of the Froome Community Bike Project. I did the drawings and the application, but I'm not involved with the bike project in any way. I just did the application as it's a community project. So the sorry, complete thought. This is the existing site location plan. The project is cited just in front of. Sorry, Helen.
Oh, yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Sorry, so it's the Froome Community Bike Project. It's currently proposed to be sited at Station Approach behind the main building, just in front of Froome Reclamation. So sorry. The gates to that. It is currently a car park, but I believe it's now empty. And these are the existing elevations. So you can see Froome Rec is to the west, and it's residential houses behind. Oops. And then this is the proposal for 2 containers, shipping containers that we use for storage, and a wooden cabin, which will be used as a shop, office-esque building, public facing, as well as 10 Sheffield bicycle stands. Oops. Okay, and then these are the other elevations, one facing south and the other facing east. Sorry, I keep pressing the wrong button. And again, these are the proposed elevations for that. I've had to do it as if you were standing between the fence behind and the back of the project, otherwise you can't see them. And these are the proposed plans. So as you can see, again, 2 shipping containers situated next to each other, and the log cabin forming an L shape, which provides a bit of a protected outdoor area. Oops. And that is everything I've got. The Civic Society have given some comments, which I forwarded to you earlier, but I will just go over them now. They've objected on the basis that they feel that it's too close to the neighbouring homes. They're concerned about the privacy, visual impact and noise from a workshop. However, Environmental Protection have commented online on Mendip's, on the planning portal, saying that they've got no objection to it. They were also concerned that there was no facilities and no WC, but I'm aware that the WC and facilities within the main building have been offered for that. And then I think that we've also had Froome Reclamation have given some comments, but I assume you want to speak yourself, so I won't speak for you. So that is that. If anyone has any questions, James from the Bike Project is here to explain further and to give any clarification on anything. If someone could pass him a microphone, please.
Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, James, do you want to introduce this in your own words, as they say? I'm sure Catherine's done a wonderful job as well, but as you're here as the appeal, as the person proposing.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So we are proposing to site the project at Station. Am I on? Yeah. Or maybe I'm just not quite close enough. Yeah. So we're proposing to site at Station Approach. We have agreed a lease with the landlord, dependent upon planning permission, which gives us access to use things like WCs inside the main Station Approach building. Yeah, we're hopeful that broadly, we're a bike workshop, not a machine tools workshop, so we'll be relatively quiet. There aren't sort of drills and things going all the time. We're hopeful that broadly it's not too disruptive for everybody.
Any questions, comments? Steve, I'm guessing you. Good evening, by the way. Good to see you again.
Oh yeah, yeah. You've been here before, haven't we? Yeah. Is that better? No, okay. Yeah. So I understand this is just a preliminary, really, because there's another 2 weeks for other people to object, which I know they will be. Those will be coming in. So there are some questions I've got in the first paragraph here, which we need some real answers to, and could these be answered tonight, probably by you, and then these answered. Could the answers be posted on your? Am I still not close enough? Oh, really?
Any better.
Is that any better? Oh my God. That frightened myself there. No, it's fine. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. I just got back to where I was. So, yeah. So if these questions can be answered, because I'm sure you can answer them, and then perhaps you could post those answers against my. This will be part of the objection, shall we say? So if I read the first one, you can answer these and then post it another day. So we object to this proposal in its present form. So we received a letter on November the 17th last year from Emma Parker, which would be
my wife, co-director of.
Right. Okay. And I think, was it you and her came to the offices?
No, it was one of the other directors, Alex Hooper.
Right. I wasn't there. You spoke to my.
Yeah, I think spoke to one of your colleagues.
Yeah, my family. Yeah. So that was from. They were from the Frome Community Bike Project, and we got an email, which we replied to. So we were surprised to find a full application had been posted without a preparatory application. So anyway, furthermore, we were not included on the mailing list.
Isn't something that we do. The notification list isn't from us.
It's Mendip that sends out the notification list. I assume it was just a mistake.
It's not the first time.
Sure.
I was surprised as well.
Yeah. Well, there were 3 or 4 others that didn't get a letter. So However, we can't put that into bias, can we? There were, sorry, I've lost my place now. Can we be sure, this, you can answer this one. Can we be sure that the applicant on the form of the applicant, because it states the applicant is you? Yeah.
It is, but it states the applicant's me because I put the application in on behalf of the bike project.
Well, that makes you an agent, and you haven't ticked the box to say you're an agent. You can't be the planning officer and the applicant, can you?
Yeah, just to clarify, we are the applicants in as much as we're working and supporting the community bike project, and as we have the facilities to get the plans drawn, as I say, as we are working in partnership with them on this, we are the applicant and the agent, so it is correct.
Well, I find that very biased. I think the applicant should be the people who are on the proposal and not your name, as you are the chief planning officer. I mean, that is rather biased. But however, we won't argue now. I would like you to answer that on the.
That's fine. I'm not the deciding officer. The Frome Town Council are a statutory consultee. That means applications come to us, we give our opinion, we feed back to Mendip, make a decision. Whether they choose to take our opinion on board isn't necessarily weighted. They have lots of different statutory consultees depending on the application, and they take all on board. So because I've done the application, it won't come to me for me to say yes, I approve it. It goes to someone at Mendip who I don't think even knows who I am.
I understand what you're saying now. Yeah, but without using the word suspicious or biased,
We can clarify that on the portal or whatever.
it's an unusual thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's an
Frome
old.
Town Council is supporting this company before it even gets. I just find that biased. But let's move on.
Okay.
It's because we are, one of the containers that we're purchasing is pretty much solely to store projects that are part of Frome Town Council. So the hire bike scheme that was run out of Pronto, they've run out of space. The hires just basically aren't happening anymore. So we have offered as Frome Community Bike Projects to take those on, to store them and run the hire scheme and the Cycle Together scheme from hopefully this location.
Are you anything to do with the existing bicycles repair shop next to what used to be Barrows, didn't it, on the Vine Tree Crossroads?
Yes.
Is that part of yours?
Yeah, that's sort of where we came from. Yeah.
But are you still there working there then? Ah, right. I have donated bikes to you.
Thank you.
All part of the service. So, right. So I've added here, the correct name for the landowner of this proposed project is Station Approach Frome Limited. And this has not once been mentioned in this application. And Graphic House does not exist as an address. That was lost years ago, 2 previous owners back. And Unit 1 is mentioned on your plan, who you say supports your cause, does not form part of the Station Approach Frome Limited, but belongs to another landowner. You may have just put the wrong number on the wrong.
That might have been my error on the design and access statement.
Sorry, is this as labelled on here?
Not that plan. There's another one. Let's move on.
We'll clarify that for you.
Yeah. Can you find one of my pictures, images?
Oh, thank you. I had it right now.
Sorry, Drake, right? So this one here says unit 1.
Yes.
And on here it says, on your application it says unit 1, but this doesn't belong to this body.
It's auto labeled. So these unit, and you can see the fence.
Yeah.
So I don't think this unit 1.
It's misleading to anybody who reads your application that says unit 1 and they look at that as unit 1, but it's not. Your unit 1 you're referring to is probably within this building somewhere. It's just misleading to think that's. Yeah, you'll find what I mean if you look. It's more detail, I know, but it needs to be right, doesn't it? Also, you mentioned several units, A, B, D, 2B, B1, etc., etc. But you don't show any of those units lettered or numbered on your plans. Could we do that?
Yes, I believe. Are they from the design and access statement?
Sorry?
The units mentioned, are they from the design and access statement? Because I believe they're the units within the larger unit.
They probably are, but they're not marked, so no one can tell where they are.
Do you want this mic, please?
I'm one of the tenants of Unit 1.
Yeah, I know who you are.
And,
You're not allowed to speak, are you?
can I speak to clarify?
Yeah, Councillor
Merriweather.
can speak, she just can't vote on it.
So within Unit 1, they are labelled A, B, C, D. My unit is Unit 7, 1F and 1G within the main building, which you enter from where Rye Bakery is. And then it leads into the back area, which is the former train station gym.
Which is now being developed into what?
There are a number of units being developed in there, an extension of Rye Bakery, which currently exists within the building, an extension of Sweet Bee, which resides in Unit 1, and nothing else that I'm aware of.
Okay. So my question was, will all these numbers and divisions be marked on the application?
Where are you seeing those? Like, is it within the design and access statement? Because I want to make sure that
I've read, there's about 15 or 20 pages and I've printed them out and read them thoroughly. And all these are mentioned, and yet the numbers aren't marked on the plan as to where they are. They're obviously within that main building, but they're not divided up and marked so that we can see who they are.
So you want to see the units within the main building?
Well, if all these numbers and letters relate to other businesses, we would like to see those numbers and letters shown on the plan. We've already had one discrepancy where Unit 1 is marked on there, but that relates to someone else's property.
We can go back and we can draw over the plan and put the internal units within that main building in. Unit 1 and Unit 3 have been auto-labelled by the map, and they are on a different, as you said yourself, they're on a different plot. They're not relating to this unit, to this application. There's a fence in between them.
Well, I'm sure you'll read this again and you'll be able to put things right.
Yes.
Okay. The proposed area for the development is not vacant, as you suggest. It is leased by a second-hand car dealer to store vehicles, is part exchange vehicles, and the area marked in blue, which I've marked on plan, which I provided. The area marked in blue is a staff and customer car park for City Plumbing. If you see image 1, 2, and 3, so both these companies will have to be removed to create your business entranceway from the right of way?
So as far as I'm aware, the current business that's there has been given notice, and it should be empty as far as I'm aware. And we've not included the station, the city plumbing park.
Sorry,
We haven't included the city plumbing parking in our application.
well, you have, because on there you've marked the entrance where you come through the narrow piece on that plan there. Look.
Yeah,
Okay, you've marked on there that the right of way into the proposed site is from the top end.
yeah, and I've gone around the city plumbing car parking with the red line.
No. You see, how can I point out things there? You've got my pictures in front of you. Let's have a look. Oh, sorry. Oh yes, here we are. So on plan B, as I've marked on here, which is the same one up there. Oh yes, on this existing site location plan, you see the right of way from the main road is etched red each side. Okay, and then it comes to the narrow bit by city plumbing. Okay, and then the right of way for your proposed site comes right into the top corner. Do you see it? It comes right into the top corner. Now, to be able to do that,
Oh, I see, yes.
right? To be able to do that, that cuts right across City Plumbing's staff and customer parking. So all that customer parking will be lost.
Yeah,
That's it.
Lisa, I was looking at the other.
It doesn't. It goes across, well, I mean, you know it much better than I do, I'm sure, but where the line of the car parking is, that's where we'll come out to. So we will be inside the right of way and going as far as the Bowsers that exist there at the moment. So when you look at it, when the city plumbing car parking will remain there, we won't be covering over that at all.
Okay, can you, then when you redraw that map, then can you show on there the number of cars parking spaces that will be left for city plumbing? Could you do that?
Yes, of course I can.
Yeah?
Mhm.
Okay. So we're talking about trade waste here. It says you won't be creating any trade waste, but I suggest that you'll be using paint tins, spray cans, spirits, oils, oily rags, metal, and old tires. Now, if you see Article 1 and 2 that I've addressed there, you'll see that some bicycle tires are now included in bad waste, shall we say, by the government. And also, I've included an article from the Royal Mail, who have decided, in the interest of safety, to scrap 24,000 office bicycles, which endanger the lives of their postmen. So, sorry.
If we have access to the waste for the rest of what we've called Unit 1, which may not be Unit 1, but the rest of station approach
I
bits.
know, where the waste disposal units.
But in terms of things like paint, we won't be using paint because we don't respray bikes. We're not doing that sort of thing at all. Disposal of tires and inner tubes, if we have to dispose of them responsibly, obviously we will. You know, we're in the recycling game. You know, we're not going to.
I know nothing about recycling.
Yeah, and Royal Mail scrapping bikes, that's up to them. That's
Their choice.
yeah. I mean, you can carry a lot of stuff on a bike. You can carry a lot of heavy stuff in a little Royal Mail trolley. So that's their lookout.
Okay. I just think these things are important to put on your application down to the finest detail. So the nearest bins are 200 meters away, but I guess you'll get the appropriate bins installed to your site for tires and
yes.
things. Yeah. And so with these possible inflammatory items on site, do you consider the log cabin could be a fire hazard?
They're not having any paint on site. They're not having any paint on site, are they? So,
well, you know, if you're going to repair a bike, you need degreasing solutions, which are inflammable. Oils,
I don't know.
oily rags. I mean, they're all inflammable, aren't they?
Yeah.
I don't entirely see how this is relevant to an application for a building to go in.
I'm talking about waste items that are also inflammable, and you're building a log cabin.
Yeah, and do you have a shed at home where you keep inflammable materials in it? I mean, plenty of people keep inflammable materials in.
But this is a business, and a business has to be responsible for those.
Absolutely, yeah, and we will
which is
make sure
different
that we
to a
have-
private.
We'll make sure that we have the
shed.
appropriate measures in place to deal with any necessary.
But again, these are fine details, I know, but they all have to be considered, don't they? Okay, so now you're the proposer, can you supply a detailed plan and demonstrate where your 10 parking spaces are as mentioned on the application?
Sorry, I think that's a misunderstanding. It's 10 bicycle parking spaces, not 10 car parking spaces, which are shown on the plan and the elevation.
Yeah, I've seen the bike rack, but it does say somewhere, I've read it, that you had 10 parking spaces.
Yeah, it's 10 bicycle parking.
Bicycle parking, not car parking.
Well, perhaps I've read it wrong, have I?
There's absolutely no way that 10 cars could fit into that space.
No, that's why I queried it.
Yeah. So yeah, we can see there with the bike racks. I take it what there's.
You can
So
see them on
you
the,
don't intend to have anybody arrive at all? So customers, people who work there, et cetera, will not arrive in cars.
People will arrive in cars because people arrive in cars all the time.
Absolutely. So what I'm saying is, where are they going to park?
They can park where they can find a parking space, the same as anybody else arriving at the other businesses that are presently located there.
So, well, this leads on to the worst point, perhaps. You know, the place is overcrowded now. Everybody moans, especially me, probably. The right of way is a right of way, and that is continually blocked with people with cars getting coffee, blah, blah, blah. You know, it has to be addressed. I don't see how another enterprise is going to help.
I would suggest an enterprise that's trying to encourage people to cycle would broadly be trying to get fewer people to use cars.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there is, as you point out, logically people will turn up with vehicles. However, we are trying to get more people onto bikes.
Well, sorry.
I'm sure the bike project will make people aware that there is very limited parking and they would much prefer people to come by bike. And people.
If people have already got a bike, how hard are they going to turn up, are they?
Ride it.
Eh?
It's bike repair, isn't it? Can we move on to your next point, please, Steve?
Sure. So, well, this project will undoubtedly increase traffic to the area. and with no pedestrian path or cycle path in place and no room to create one, the danger is self-explanatory. A recent planning application, which we all know about and remember, in the same area was partly refused on these grounds by Somerset Highways. It's not safe to have pedestrians and cycles in that area. That's been proved by Somerset Highways.
We'll have to wait to hear what Somerset Highways say about this.
Sure we will. And this is a strong point here, because if it's been refused once for the same reason, they can't change their minds, can they?
From Highways on this one? No. Okay, well, we'll have to wait and see what.
Yeah, there's never 2 weeks to go. So that there's no stormwater drains or sewage connections within the proposed site. You may have answered this already. What is your proposal to satisfy the need for WC and hand washing facilities? The question has not been fully answered on your application.
It does say in the application that we have access within Unit 1, whatever you want to call it.
Actually, the answer, you tick the box, it says something else. That's all the answer on there.
Within the design and access statement, it states that we have access to toilets and hand washing facilities.
Well, I didn't get that on my message when I looked at the. It just says the box is ticked, something else, which I would like a full explanation for that. The nearest toilets are another 100 yards away. That means you've got to cross that right of way every time you want to use the toilet. Okay. Perhaps you could answer that properly on your application then.
I'm sorry, it is answered on the application. Within the design and access statement, it says that we have access to use the facilities within the main building. I'm not, I mean, maybe we're looking at different things.
Well, I've opened it up and I've printed out, I don't know, 15 or 20 pages, and I've read it several times.
Sorry.
Go on, Jane, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, I've just reading the design and access statement, and it says, and staff and public welfare facilities are provided in Unit 1. So, or that isn't Unit.
Is there a few pages missing from my computer?
The application form, which is the couple of sheets. The design access one is about 19 pages.
I've missed it on something.
Yeah, is this one down here on the bottom of the.
No, sorry, I'm sorry about that. Then I'll go back and read that. Yeah. I'll blame my daughter. She printed it, I think. So where was I then? So the doors to the shipping container, they appear to open out almost onto the right of way. So when you've opened these doors, you've got to be able to walk around these doors with a bicycle, and you're going to stray onto the right of way. And if you look at my my images, you'll see that articulated vehicles come and turn there all the time. They need the whole of that area to turn, and the back end swing could just clip you in a bicycle and those shipping container doors. So is it your intention to put some kind of barrier there?
It isn't. We would like to site the containers as far back as we possibly can to avoid any potential issues. They're storage, they're not in regular use. They're not.
Well, you have to put bicycles in and out every day, surely.
Semi-regularly, yeah.
In general, virtually no maintenance has been carried out on the whole of the site since being purchased by Station Approach Froome Limited. Landscaping is overgrown, fences are broken, drains are blocked, and most important, the right-of-way is riddled with large potholes, a real danger to cyclists. You can see all the images I've sent. Finally, a double yellow line needs to be installed from point A to point B on another image on the west side of the right way to dissuade unlawful parking, which is already causing problems. Blocking the right of way only to be exacerbated should another company be allowed to start in this area. Does the director who acts for the landowner of Station Approach Froome Limited intend to address these problems in order to make it both safe and attractive for visitors prior to the result of this application? Parking is already oversubscribed. The two service areas have strict no parking signs in full view in order to keep the areas open for large vehicles to operate. See some more images there. Further developments, sorry, Mark. Further development is already underway to create more images within the X-Gym building. This will create even more problems as this site is already overdeveloped. Not your problem, I know.
Well, my problem.
Yeah. Well, I say there's a lot to do and answer and consider. And there's lots more objections to follow. So I'm sure you'll keep up with it all.
Okay.
I will keep an eye out.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for those comments. Anyone else got any comments? Councillors? Hello.
I'm not familiar with the Frome Town Council constitution, but I know that at Mendip we have a thing where we declare an interest, and I didn't hear that, and I think that's the thing that rather just.
It's because you were late.
Pardon?
You were late.
Right, okay, fine. Right. Sorry, everybody. All right. Yeah, because also, as you'll know from the history of when we had the first Saxon Vale application, we had members of the cabinet who were the promoters of the project, then being also on the planning committee that judged the project, and subsequently that was we made a change at Mendip so that we never had cabinet members on the planning committee anymore. But that was just the point I was going to make, and so I kind of understand the gentleman's point about that and the Chinese wall business. Yeah,
Thanks, Helen. Yeah, well, as I say, we did all declare an interest at the very start of the meeting. No problem. Anyone else? Brilliant.
Thanks, Steve. I visited the site again today, just basically to refresh myself and have a look at it. I've taken some photographs and what have you. I'm very supportive of the project. I do have one concern though. My concern is that the approach coming from basically what is Rye Bakery and past the bathroom centre there, and then that sharp left turn, there is no pavement, and it's quite narrow. And as you were saying, and you were discussing about whether it would have create extra traffic and cars and so on, you want people to walk, you want people to cycle. It's not actually cycle pedestrian friendly. And just the short time that I was there, very, very large lorries coming in and out. And apparently those weren't the largest that are there. I just think that that's a consideration, you know, to think about in terms of safety, of getting people from, if they park outside the station there and walk to you. I think it needs to be sort of factored in and thought about.
That's the point I made earlier on when we had a previous plan application last year for 6 houses to be built there. The same thing was brought up by Highways, and I'd say that's one of the reasons why it was refused, because of a lack of pedestrian access there.
I mean, the one thing that struck me was that it could be that it's as does happen in some restricted areas, there's a painted line with the silhouette of a walker or a cyclist that says, you know, you always stick to that side regardless of what you might think the highway, or regardless of what you might think what's going on that road. And also signs, I don't know if signage has been discussed, talked about, to make drivers aware, you know, speed limit, there is a bump there, I've got a photograph in front of me now, which as you approach, things like that to mitigate, you know, people meeting lorries, basically. I think it's just a consideration.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. Anyone else got any comments? Mark?
Steve, you're quite right that we objected last time to the live work units that were proposed there. And that pinch point, city plumbing, was a real sticking point, wasn't it? And Highways said it wasn't appropriate. Would it be okay? I appreciate the people who'll be working in and out of the containers, bringing bikes in and out. Will obviously look to see if there's a lorry coming. We appreciate that. But would it be better to formalise that by putting something like an Armco barrier there to so there's no danger of somebody running out
If we had to, yes, although we want to make sure we're good neighbours to Froome Reclamation, so putting an Armco barrier there could impact on them. It would be a conversation.
Well, I have in my report here, I have suggested that there's like an L shape from your proposed entrance that comes off. From there, there's an L shape back to my fence. And you can see it drawn on there. If you were to put a motorway style barrier along that edge, and behind that, put a 4 foot or 6 foot fence to stop people climbing over that barrier will also protect you from a vehicle that might just not get round and want to reverse back. He's going to hit your barrier before he hits you or your bicycles. So you'll see that plan drawn on there.
If that's okay by you, then we would do that. But we want to make sure that we're good neighbours as well.
It's not just me. I mean, I'm thinking of your safety. This is all about safety. This whole project. I mean, I'm all for repairing bicycles. I don't mind you being there at all. But there's a lot more needs to be thought out before you can open your doors.
All right, perhaps you guys can take that away. I sort of agree with what Mark said. We poured over the previous application hundreds of times, or it felt like hundreds of times. There is that pinch point there. The road is in a dreadful state. I mean, perhaps the landowner could make an effort to make that lane a little bit easier for everybody. That would be one comment that we could make, I think. Any other comments? Now, Jane, sorry, you're the expert here. So we have all declared an interest in this. What do we do now?
That's a good question. I mean, you have all declared an interest, and it is worth pointing out that we have actually previously objected to some of our own applications that we've made, particularly contrary applications. I think it's been really useful to have this discussion, and I think there are probably further discussions that are needed with the landowner, perhaps particularly in respect of trying to put a line along that narrow bit. But what we have said in the past, again on our own applications, is that as this is a town council application, we can either say we have no comment or we fully support it. So I think that very much depends on how councillors view the application, or you could say that we will be having further discussions with the applicant and the landowner, and we'll submit comments at a later stage. I'm not quite sure how councillors are feeling about it if they were to vote. So,
thank you.
Sorry, can we just?
Yeah, I was just about. Yeah.
Can we not object or not support?
Yeah.
Either way, but just offer comments.
Yeah.
The comments that stood for the live work units possibly still stand for this application, and the other things that have come out of this discussion, but explain that we feel conflicted in voting on it due to our interest in it.
Absolutely. So I suppose one question is the concerns over the pinch point around the access. If the landowner, because obviously it's something that would have to be done separately from this application, was prepared to put in a yellow line or a line indicating where pedestrians should keep behind, is that likely to resolve your concerns? If so, then we could go away and have those discussions with the landowner and then come back with some amendments and some further answers to Steve's questions, and then submit that as additional information to the application.
Yeah, that's sort of where I was coming from. Whatever you said. I'm really conflicted, and I'm really conscious how this looks to the general public as well. So I personally would like to defer this to the next meeting, and in that 3-week period that we get between now and the next meeting, get some clarification on things like safety barriers, if they can be installed, how we can make that pinch point a bit easier for pedestrians and those sort of comments. Is that something that we can do? I know I'm
We
taking a
don't-
leaf out of the chair of Mendip Planning Authority.
So we don't have to respond on this application as a consultee immediately. And given that we're the applicants, we do have the ability to submit some revised and amended plans to
Right.
deal with these concerns. And then because there have been amended plans, it will come back to us
Good.
as a as a reconsultation, and then we can submit our comments following that.
Yeah, I don't want to drag on indefinitely. I want to get a grounding on this really quickly, but I do think we need to be seen to be looking to clarify a few bits. That's all. Anyone agree on the disagree, or I'm talking out?
But yeah, but tonight wouldn't have been decided tonight anyway, would it?
No,
No.
we don't decide on this at all.
No, but I mean, there's another 2 weeks of perhaps objections to come in yet, so nothing can be decided. tonight.
I mean, we could, but we're just a
I see.
statutory consultee like everybody else, and then Mendip will take all the comments,
But you,
including ours.
right, I'm just thinking that if there's another 2 weeks of perhaps objections to come in,
Yeah, but they don't come to us, Steve. They go to Mendip.
do they?
Yeah.
Uh,
They go on the Mendip portal. Exactly the same as our comments would.
Right.
Yeah.
So perhaps no one here has actually seen all this that I sent today then, have they?
I got it about half an hour before the meeting,
Oh, right.
which is why I've been reading it while you've been.
Sorry. Yeah. Well,
So,
I only put this in at the last minute
Yeah.
because Jane said there was a meeting
Yeah.
tonight. So
I saw that.
it's all a bit rushed since I had a letter Monday and a meeting tonight, you know.
So can we not vote and agree to do pretty much what we've just said? We get some clarifications and bring it back to the next meeting.
I think it might be useful if you vote on the fact that we will go away and seek clarification and then bring it back to a later meeting.
Right, can we vote to go away, seek clarification, bring it back to a later meeting? Thanks. Someone propose that, please. Thank you, Andy. Thank you. And you can't vote. We can vote. I don't know if you can or no. We'll have to clarify that for the next meeting as well. Right, thank you. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
Thank you, everybody, on that.
Okay, last one. Well, last two, but they're the same one. That's okay. Thank you. A chance. I'll give everyone a chance to leave who wants to. Last one is the Blue House. They are proposing to fell the 4 Chanticleer, I'm not sure how to say that, I'm so sorry, pears on the front, on the bridge. As you can see from the sketch plan, it's these 4 on the bridge, group 1, which proposed fell. Oh, sorry. So
These two at the front.
there's 4.
Right.
Yeah, pairs of pears. So they were planted in the 60s, I believe, straight into the bridge. The roots are now growing and cracking the bridge, which is obviously bad for the bridge and the trees. The Blue House said that they would, if they'd realised it was happening earlier, they would have transplanted them. But unfortunately, it's now too late to do anything with that. So I visited with Bo Walsh, Rob Holden, our environmental manager. No, I didn't. Bo Walsh, Sarah Butler, and Helen Viner and John Clark, as well as the Blue House's arboriculturalist. And it's evident that the trees are causing serious damage to the bridge. So the proposal is to take them out and put in liquid amber and spindle trees to provide an equal level of visual interest. And they'll be planted in pots rather than into the bridge to minimise any future damage. The Civic Society have said that they provide a high amenity and environmental value in a largely barren street scene and stand as the entrance to a grade 1 listed building. They would have liked to see them considered for TPOs, but I believe Beau said he couldn't TPO fruit trees. They think that these proposed replacements are an improvement on an earlier proposal for junipers, but they're still not keen on the proposed tree. But I think they look really nice. So that's that one. That's that one. And then
What do you mean that's that one?
that's that one. They've
All right.
got trees in the back garden as well that they want to take out.
Okay.
This is the list. They want to mainly reduce trees. There's one here that sorry, my laptop's not behaving. There we go. So the red, it's not a very clear image. I'm really sorry. The red circles are the ones they want to fell. There was a silver birch, I believe, that they originally wanted to fell, and Sarah's persuaded them to keep it and just let it.
Red circles.
I know. You can see them really
Oh,
well.
is that
This-
one there?
do you
Sorry.
wanna-
Is that a red circle?
Yeah, do you want to see it on my screen? Because it's much clearer. It's basically necessary tree works. Beau's been and agreed it as well.
Right, okay.
That's,
Can we go back to the trees at the front?
of course.
So the reason is they're damaging the bridge. The roots are going out and under the bridge
Yeah.
across the river.
So
The bridge that goes.
Yeah,
over
the
the
bridge
river.
goes across the river. The roots are growing around the arch and pushing there's big cracks all the way down.
Okay. In other tree applications that we've looked at in the past, we've sort of pushed back and said rather than take the tree out, they should bung the roots to protect whatever the structure that they're damaging.
Don't think it's possible, but I can clarify it with Beau Walsh.
Yeah, 'cause I'm just thinking it's slightly contradictory that we've said that in the past on others and we sort of ignore it on this one, if you know what I mean. But if you could, that would be great.
I can clarify that with Beau.
Thanks. Right, that was on any other.
I would if I could find it. Any other comments on the? No, fine.
I think if we consider just these at the front, then I agree. If there is a way that we can preserve them, great. But I'd have thought that between Helen and Beau, they would have come up with that already if it were an option.
Yeah, I just think we need to make sure that has been
Absolutely, make
looked at. Yeah.
And just from my understanding, the bridge that's at risk, is that effectively the car park entrance over that culvert off the river, or is it the main carriageway bridge that goes on over the River Frome?
It's over the overflow channel. Yes. So it's when you come off the main road through Frome, and it's on the right hand side.
Yeah. So it's actually that bit of roadway that we can see between the two trees that is a bridge in itself.
Yeah, it's this bit.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, this bit underneath the car.
Yep. No, I think if we can, we should, but I'd have expected them to have explored all those opportunities, particularly given the people involved. And I think looking at the back garden area, I went around that last summer and I was amazed just how overgrown with trees it was, to the detriment of it being an amenity to the residents and so on. So I quite agree that there's a lot of work needs to be done there.
What they're mainly concerned about in the back garden is overhanging branches falling either onto the car park to the left or the residential houses to the right. So that's the main works. And then there's one very large tree which is killing, because the light can't get through, it's killing everything underneath it. I believe that's tree 11. Yeah, the
That's
big
the big
one on the map.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think Sarah is involved with renovating the garden.
Yeah, she's the gardener there, isn't she?
Yeah. So there's going to be this bottom corner, I think. They're going to let more light in and have like a woodland. So, sounds lovely.
Right. Any other comments? Okay. At the end of the day, we're going to defer to Bo, aren't we? I mean, he's the expert on these things, but I just think we should have clarification.
I'll email him first.
If these trees are attacking the bridge, sure, do highways have to be consulted? No. Benefit of the tape, do highways have to be consulted?
No. Sorry, I forgot about that. As I seem to be speaking anyway, I'll just add, I suspect the reason the trees need to be removed is so that they can and the roots, so that they can repair the damage to the bridge to stop water and frost and so on getting in and actually making the damage worse.
Yeah, okay, but then if they're doing the repairs to the bridge, so they could put a bund in to stop future roots from attacking the bridge.
It's cracked, so in order to repair the cracks, they'll need to remove the roots to be able to do that. That's my view.
Yeah, no, I'm sort of, I see where you're coming from, but I would have thought, in all fairness, if they have to repair the bridge, then that's while they're doing that work, then the cost of putting a bund in to stop any, where they cut the roots off to stop them affecting the bridge. At that point, they could put a bund in to stop any future roots from affecting the bridge and keep the trees.
It's probably going to kill the trees if you cut the roots off.
I'll email them in the morning.
If it does, it does.
I'll clarify the health of the tree and why they can't do the roots. They did say if they wish they could go back to the 60s and say, put them in a pot. But,
sure. Yeah, no, I get that. So I think I'm just trying to be consistent with previous comments that we've made, in Beechwood Avenue, in the oak tree that Hannah knew, Victoria Park, where we've, where we've basically said, no, you can't just chop the tree down just because it's, affecting your garden wall or something like that. That's all. That's all.
I'll clarify with Bo and I'll let you know his answer.
Thank you very much.
And that's it.
Have we got a vote on that? What are we voting on? Yeah, vote to defer to Bo, but subject to can you get clarification that they have looked into funding? Thank you. I'm going to propose that.
Second.
Thank you very much, Amy.
Are there any other proposals that anyone wants to talk about or get any clarity on? Anything else? I'll take that as a no. No.
We vote on no comment on the others, please.
Yeah, proposed.
Thank you, Andy.
Great.
Thank you very much. And the next, that closes the meeting here. The date of the next meeting is, Hannah?
Is it on the bottom of your...
Yeah, I have no idea where it is.
26th of January.
26th of January. Thank you very much. And look forward to seeing them. Thank you very much. It's Catherine's birthday, so